Welcome. Today, my AJM interview is with Dr. Cynthia Kai and Dr. Abhay Singh, both from Macquarie University. The topic of today's conversation is their co-authored paper, along with Jennifer Gipple and Elizabeth Zhu, published in the Australian Journal of Management, Special Issue and Grand Challenges. The title of the paper is The Power of Crowds, Grand Challenges in the Asia-Pacific Region. Here's the interview. Okay, so welcome Cynthia and Abe. It's a pleasure to have you here talk about your paper in AGM Special Issue Grand Challenges. So what are the key insights for industry, policymakers and or employees from your paper published in AGM's Grand Challenges?
Hi, hello, and thank you for inviting us. I think the core message of our paper is really, if we think about what has been changed now, is the crowds that normally we think has nothing to do within the organizations has become enormous resources to provide a much cheaper and quicker solutions to the complex questions. That is really the main core message we wanted to highlight it. And then we're trying to start with conceptual framework, trying to really provide some cases with a very deep analysis to show those benefits and barriers, a lot of things we hope to provide some implementation suggestions to all those policymakers. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria, for having us. And Cynthia summed it up pretty well. I guess it's about showing the power of the crowd, right? And how the world has changed, and we no longer have to go from person to collect information. It's just a click away on a platform where we can collect all the information and use that for research. And it's now not just for industry or the efforts they make. And as we know, in our paper, we also mentioned about how that can be used for social good, and it's been used in NGOs and things like that for medicines and other scientific discoveries. So yeah, I think it lays out the importance of crowdsourcing and how it should be dealt with, and what the future action can be, and we can touch on that.
Okay, so reflecting about the time when you wrote the paper and now the COVID-19 pandemic has emerged, do you think that the pandemic has accentuated or changed the core messages within your paper?
No, we actually think the COVID-19 pandemic is an ideal examples. It's an ideal grand challenge that is currently facing by the whole human beings. And our proposed solutions to get the solutions from the whole crowd is really, it's what we are seeing now. If we are saying say for example, what is happening in the US under the traditional way of relying this on the pure government structure, it doesn't work well. This is clearly evidence. And instead, if you're seeing what people are trying to do over the world, trying to really go with this COVID-19, and we can see a lot of very innovative solutions and coming from the crowds, from the communities. It's not really driven by a specific organizations or specific government. It's more about collaborations, and you get from everywhere. So to put it in this way, crowns is really break these broad borders. So because of the COVID-19, our physically are being really quite restricted and limited. But within the crowns, to going through the online, we can really help each other broadly to really fight for this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, I'll agree with Cynthia, and we have already seen so many efforts to solve the problem of COVID-19, which are now getting in with crowdsourcing. For example, there is I read some long ago, there is a game called Fold It by some scientists, and they're trying to crowdsource formation of a protein which they want to use for treatment of COVID. And there are crowdsourcing efforts here for the vaccine. So people are crowdsourcing, and I would actually argue that the contact tracing is sort of a crowdsourcing effort to crowdsource the data, so that we can know people who are getting in contact with each other, and we are giving our data, but we are giving it for greater good, where we can manage this. crisis, and we all hope this goes away really quickly. So hopefully it goes, and the crowdsourcing has really come in forefront, and it's helping us here.
So what are some future research directions suggested from your paper, and feel free to share what research you're working on right now.
Okay, so this is like our current paper is Grand Challenge is quite like a discussion paper, to put it in this way. It's really trying to inspire more researchers to think about, to go to these areas. And under the current COVID-19, for example, there are so many opportunities, and to really narrow down to safe examples, just as we just mentioned, we can see there are a lot of cases people are trying to come with the crowns to solve, address, tackle these COVID-19 related issues. And we can then narrow down to analyze those cases to try to provide more clear guidance or suggestions on the top of that to really move forward to see how things can be further improved. And maybe we can come up with some more proposed about in terms of how the government, for examples, can really collaborate with different organizations, different individuals in this case, to improve in the future. We don't want to go back to what was happening for the last few months. We wanted to learn from our lessons. And these lessons can only be learned after we analyze what is really happening nowadays. And I think crown solutions is really an ideal way to go. So how about you, Abe?
No, I agree, and the paper lays out some of the challenges, some of the opportunities which are there for everyone. And in terms of that, current times, they say one thing out loud is that sourcing from everyone is going to be the solution. We are in a shared economy, and when we talk about shared economy, we're crowdsourcing in one way or the other anyway. But that's their opportunities are endless here. It's just going to come down to, when I think about it, is that the ethical challenges behind that is going to take the forefront soon once we are over this pandemic. Because during the pandemic, you sideline them a bit, but after that, you start thinking about them, and then it's going to become that challenge and how to solve that. In terms of my current research, obviously we are working on different paradigms originated from crowdsourcing, but also I'm currently working on things like social media and the influence of that, and the influence of that on the information sharing, for example, on bushfires in Australia, and how these news medias are used in finance, for example. So that's on the fintech side of things. So I guess in terms of crowdsourcing, we are in the time where we cannot just be academics in one area, right? We have to be interdisciplinary. And that's how we are publishing in interdisciplinary research. We are conducting interdisciplinary work. So that's a future which I look forward to. And I think it's a good thing to do these days.
Yeah, coming back to the Abe's points, I currently also have another, not directly relates to crowns, but it's more about investigations, similar investigations, the motivations and incentives behind those crowns and why they are doing that. Because a main distinct difference about this crown solutions is most of the people that are doing this voluntarily, rather than mandatory forced by because of the organizations or other reasons. So in order to really well apply this concept, and the motivation of those individual peoples who are willing to do this is very essential, important. So that's why we're working in that directions as well.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Cynthia and Abe. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.